Careful, Spidey, all those arms do maximum harm. Here's your look at the Hot Toys, the Spider-Man video game masterpiece, Spider-Man Anti-Ock suits. The Anti-Ock suit is an original creation from Marvel's Spider-Man video game, which allows fans to access the special resupply power upon the final battle. The Anti-Ock suit is an upgraded version of the advanced suit made from the same material used on Octavius's mechanical tentacles, giving Peter Parker amazing abilities to figure on par with the ultimate villain. Continue to expand on Marvel's Spider-Man collectibles series, Hot Toys present the Spider-Man Deluxe 6-scale collectible figure, dressed in his Anti-Ock suit, to directly counter Doc Ock's highly weaponized arms. Now, I feel it'd probably be a good idea before we get down to the review of Anti-Ock Spider-Man to first figure out how tall the figure stands. So does that sound like a good idea? I hope so. Taking the tape measure right to the very top of his head, we're going to stop it right there. Anti-Ock suit Spider-Man is 12.1 inches in height. Switch that over to centimeters, because I know there's people out there that certainly would like to see their 6-scale figures representing in centimeters. Then you're looking at the figure standing 30.7 centimeters tall. Before we have a look at the display stand that comes included with Spidey, unfortunately, the person that currently is sitting behind the camera, that's me, does have to make one admitted statement. I have perhaps made a wrong choice when it came to purchasing the Anti-Ock suit Spider-Man. Not in the sense that, no, I'm not disappointed in the figure. It has, yes, limitations when it comes to the articulation, but, I mean, it's a Hot Toys Spider-Man. It always has limitations when it comes to his articulation. No, more so, the fact that this figure hasn't yet been released in North America. The figure is going to be released as a basic figure, the one that we're going to be looking at in this review, and if you want to throw a few extra dollars in there, he is also going to be released as a deluxe version. I, in my what I thought was better wisdom, decided to go with the basic figure, thinking to myself, well, I wasn't going to spend the money to get a display base that, I mean, ultimately, I really wasn't going to ever display with the figure. You know what? I totally would have displayed along with the figure. Let me just show you where the wrong path I took. I'm going to just, first for Exhibit A, I suppose, we're going to bring out the instruction guide. This, of course, is something I would always recommend that you guys read thoroughly when it comes to opening up and handling your Hot Toys, because it gives you all the no-nos, things that you shouldn't be doing. Oh, I shouldn't be doing this. Oh, I shouldn't be moving his arm beyond the point of 90 degrees. Yeah, it goes without saying. But the thing I certainly want to bring to your attention is this part right here. This is all the section I would categorize as his display stand. Now, this is the regular display stand, or more so, this is the regular display stand. It does have a removable plate, but the plate removes if you do have the deluxe version, which comes included with several of Doc Ock's arms. Kind of like 2.5 arms. Wasn't that a TV series that starred Charlie Sheen, 2.5 arms? I don't know. It does come included with 2.5 arms of Doc Ock's arms, and this is basically what it would look like when you would have it displayed with Spider-Man. This is what I would currently be showing you if I went the right path and decided to get the deluxe version. Made stupid mistakes. If you do, of course, decide to get this figure when he eventually gets released, I would certainly recommend. I mean, again, that's what it looks like right there. If of course, if you do have the extra cash available and you do want to have the more elaborate display stand, definitely would consider going the idea of the deluxe set. Stupid choices. Anyways, let's look at the default display stand that comes included with the stock Spidey. I'm already sort of dismissing it like it's not as grand. It isn't as grand. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves here. If you want simple, just a display stand, a hexagonal design that has a nice texturing to it, and of course, you got the yellow Spider-Man logo. This fits that all rather nicely. You can see as the light hits it, kind of has a soft grit sandpaper look to it. Of course, you got the Spider-Man logo down below, and then on the front, not quite a placard, but printed instead, you got Anti-Ock suits. Not Spider-Man, it's not, oh, Spider-Man's technically up there, so Anti-Ock suits. If you did get the deluxe version, which again, just only now, I'm beating a dead horse on this, essentially this plate would remove. Now this plate seems permanently affixed to this stand, but you would be able to remove it. There would be holes here, and then of course you would attach Doc Ock's 2.5 arms. That show starring Charlie Sheen. The display stand does have the same familiar adjustable stand, adjustable neck, I should say. that you can manipulate depending on which way you want to have your Spider-Man displayed. I probably don't want to have him displayed looking like that. That would just look somewhat ridiculous. And then, of course, he does have the waist clip that's on the top there as well, with a supporting clip that's on the back in a softer, not rubbery material, but almost like a foam material. They foam the inside of the ring and they foam the back of it just so it doesn't have scuffing, certainly when you attach the figure. Now, I'm only going to pick the figure up. Ooh, that was quite the save. I'm going to just bring the neck up here, and actually I'm going to fit Spider-Man onto it. This is, of course, not the way you would want to display your figure. I would have to hand in my figure posing card if this is the way I was going to present the figure on my shelf. But it's only just, again, to show you that you can manipulate and bend the neck on Spidey if, again, you want to have some adjustability. The one thing you will want to worry about, though, is as I'm just detaching this now from Spidey's waist, is periodically you may have to go in there and tighten up the screw. I've already now done this 4 times without a word of a lie, tightened up that screw because it has gotten excessively loose. Now, again, I don't think I was really forcing the matter too much, but I will have to maybe take myself a screwdriver and just tighten that up a little bit. Again, there's the waist clip. Not really different. I mean, we've seen these waist clips certainly before, and we certainly have looked at display stands in this shape before. Maybe not as nicely printed with the bright yellow, but man, I should have really gone with the deluxe version just to bring in some of those arms. Doc Ock's arms, 2.5 arms, starring Charlie Sheen. Looking at Spider-Man's accessories. What? Reruns again? Yes, we do get the same foam tray insert that has the various different webs. Are you new here? This is normally what we would get with these Spider-Man 6-scale figures, and it's not necessarily a case where I'm dismissing them. I just feel like every once in a while it would be oh so nice if they could just throw something in there. Throw us a web bone, so to speak. But the webs that we do get, let's go ahead and pull these from the tray. I'm going to go through these in pairs. You get one pair of just the straight line. Now, the lines themselves, each one of them, are molded in a translucent white plastic. They are susceptible to breaking, so you will not want to be doing what I'm currently doing. This isn't in the instructions, but I can tell you don't be doing this. That's going to break the web. You get 2 of those. You get what I would affectionately refer to as the Q-tip webs. Q-tips, by the way, are not designed for your ears. Despite what anybody will tell you, you really shouldn't be lodging anything smaller than your elbow, I think is what they tell you. Anything inside your ear. But you get a couple of Q-tip webs. Again, nicely detailed. I mean, nicely sculpted at least. There's not really much in the way of paint, but you get 2 of those. You get the hook line. That's not really what it's called, but you get the line, spider web line that has the bend on the end of it, like that. And of course, any one of these, by the way, does attach to the funnel web, which again, samesies. We've seen these already. I mean, one good thing going for these is if you happen to break any one of these and you're an avid Hot Toys Spider-Man collector, then you probably have yourself a whole drawer of these that you can pull from later on. Again, I don't mind the fact that we get the same web, but just every once in a while, throw us a web bone. By the way, you can take the webs, fit any one of them into the end hole like that, and you've got yourself a suspending web. If you want to have your Spider-Man suspended from your detail for your shelf, for example, you can pull that off. Seems to be my usual favorite web to go to is this one right here. It basically is just a straight web that stops in the middle, stops short right there, and then continues on its merry little way. You can see it also has some excess on the top that kind of looks like a Super Mario magic mushroom. What do you want? You can take this specific hand and grab the fist hand that actually has the thumb up. This is the one that's crucial to go with. What you can do is just, there's a hole on either side, and you just fit that into the hole, just like that. I always really dislike doing this because I always feel like I'm going to break it. At least I have extras. I certainly have extras by now. And you can have them holding the web this way. Or, really, technically, you could flip it the other way around as well if you want. A recent trend I've noticed with a lot of the Hot Toys Spider-Mans as of late seems to be that they give you swappable web shooters. Now, these specific web shooters are designed in such a way that you can see there's a hole on the end of them. The ones that are stock on his arms right now, and for this I'm going to go ahead and grab the figure, hold on to his arm, and just yank this off. I want to slide off the existing web shooter. I'm just going to put that figure back down here for a second. And I want to show you the difference between the two. Grabbing the one, grabbing the other, getting them roughly about the same configuration and trying not to drop them in the process. You can see that the one that holds the web is obviously a lot bigger. It's designed in such a way that, of course, it does have that hole. I guess they do it in this way so that you basically just swap this out. If you don't want something as big and bulky on his wrist, then yeah, you can just pop this one off and replace it with this one right here. At least these aren't the hands that you have to pop the bottom of the palms off and then replace those. I really dislike those. But with these webs, you're basically getting that hole. You take your web line and you're just going to fit the web line into the hole like that. And you have him shooting the web. Now, of course, this looks a lot more successful if I'm not just holding it like this and I'm actually putting it onto his arm. So let's go ahead and do that right now. I'll replace the one for the time being and may very well then go back and replace the other one in a second. But when you are putting it in place, you'll want to obviously make sure that the hole is facing outward, and then from there just go ahead and put the hand back into place, just like that. Then from there, take the line. I know all the things I'm stating is, I mean, that's for new people entering into the world of hot toys. People have been doing this for a long period of time. This is all just rather redundant, but at least you can have Spider-Man shooting his web. While this is actually on his hand, and it looks rather strange that it is, I'm going to just get his feet firmly planted. He does also, of course, while we're on the topic of shooting webs, he does also come with web shooting hands. Some of the previous Spider-Man figures that we've looked at before have had removable plates at the bottoms of the palms, and then you would swap that out for the hand that has the web shooter. I'm really glad that this figure doesn't have that, and I would really be happy to see that they don't use that method for future Hot Toys Spider-Mans. It's always something that I feel like you're going to lose that little plate, and then you're going to basically lose all the possibilities of him actually being able to shoot the web. While I suppose we're also on the topic of these hands, I want to show you guys a closer look at the details there. The functioning button down below there. I do like that in the example here of these hands, that he sort of has the mixture, a combination of both the meshing and then sort of like rubberized fingertips. And you can see it on the outside there as well. I would certainly be on board the idea of getting gloves like these. I mean, not to be swinging from buildings at least, but just because I think the design of the gloves are really, really cool. Again, you've got the combination of that mesh on the inside of it, more that slick jet black kind of rubber on the outside of it. Definitely nice looking hands though. Suppose we could stick with the rest of Spider-Man's hands. He also comes with a pair of relaxed hands, or almost grabbing hands. The detailing done on the interior palms are really nice. That meshing that they've sculpted on the inside, you get a better opportunity now to see it on these hands. He does also, again, have that dark gunmetal gray activation button further down. So it comes included with those. A personal favorite, I'm sure, for some people that like to display their figures inside cabinets. I've seen some real talented people. There we go. Get the hands to focus in there. I've seen some real talented people actually suspend their Spider-Man looking as if he's kind of climbing up the sides of the walls. And these hands would be the best for the job. They're not really that much different when we grab it and compare it to the partially grabbing hands, partially relaxed hands. Just that the fingers are a little bit more straighter. I guess you really could use these hands as well, but I think definitely when it comes to wall-crawling hands, these are the best hands for the job. I admit, not the most exciting of things to come include with the figure, but he does come with some replacement wrist pegs. Don't knock these, my friends, because there has been cases where I've had a couple of wrist pegs break on me. Or if you're just lazy and you have a wrist peg still stuck inside of a hand and you just don't want to have to pull that back out, then you can always pull from these. He comes with an extra 2. The last of the figure's accessories entail us looking at 2 pairs of swappable eye plates. Now, these are 2 of a possible 3 configurations. The largest of the 3, not seen right now, are the ones that are currently sitting on the figure's face when you get him first out of the packaging. These ones, though, represent the smallest opening down below and a medium opening just above that. Again, even though they arrive to us in pairs, it's not to say you could easily just use a smaller on one side, a larger on the other side. But for this, I'm going to show you how to swap out this eye. Kind of like the idea of having the more narrow eye on this look of Spider-Man at least. You can still see that it has the same shutter eye design to it as other Spider-Man that we've seen before. What's rather interesting, though, is when you look at the lens up close like this, do you realize that the lens is made up of little tiny cubes? Little tiny cubes. Anyways, we're going to put those down for the second, and we're going to pick up the figure. First of all, I want to show you guys the defaulted eyes. These are the ones that come out of the packaging with the figure. Really nice detailing on the head sculpt that we'll talk more about in a second. Obviously, the first thing we're going to want to do is remove these eyes. Now, the head, I will tell you, is plastic. While it does do a really nice job of seamlessly looking like the rest of his body, which is the material, the head, in actual fact, is molded plastic. It's not to mean that you would have to be still rough with the figure, just would have to worry a little less about the situation. Now, to remove the eyes, it's actually rather easy. All you have to do is just get your finger in there. It actually helps, I find, to go right to the top corner and sort of push in. As you push in, you'll see, like a tectonic plate, it'll start shifting its way forward. And all you do then is just slide the eye right out. The thing you will want to resist the urge of doing is pushing straight down in this, because I've seen instances in the past where that's caved right in and gone on the inside of the head. Of course, we can then also do the exact same thing on the other side. Just take your finger. You could also take like a blunt object. You really will want to resist the use of like a sharp screwdriver, for example. But again, all you really want to do, this is the most concaved part right here. It sinks a little bit further in. So the best place of entry is right here. Push in and then sort of just shift the eye forward. Then from this, I think I'm going to go ahead with the most narrowest eye. I just kind of like the idea of putting that in place. I think it's probably because all the other Spider-Man I usually have on display, I usually go with the larger eye. I think for this go around, I'm going to go with the more sleek look of the more slender looking eye. Again, though, if you want to mix and match these, just again, pop the top, shift it forward, and let's grab the medium eye here. Maybe we'll put, yeah, well, maybe we'll do it like that. And again, if you really wanted to, you could have the one eye completely open. Because it uses the same shutter eye system, it's not to say that the eyes have to open the exact same way on both sides. But certainly, though, that bright use of yellow does pop rather nicely against the backdrop of his really dark, pitch black head sculpt here. Speaking of the head sculpt, let's get a closer look at that right now. It's not what I would consider your traditional looking Spider-Man. To be fair, though, a lot of the video game inspired costumes aren't your traditional looking Spider-Man, but it sort of has a combination of almost a leather and mesh look to it. It is really interesting. The thing that really got me interested in this particular costume of Spidey is that it reminded me of Tron. That in such a way I've almost kind of nicknamed this Spider-Man Tron Spidey. I don't know if maybe you can see where I'm getting that reference from, but like the costume design of this particular suit, I feel has a very much Tron look to it. The bright colors of the yellow, of course, against the backdrop of the black, it really does show really nice on this figure. Of course, you see there's the lines here. They almost in a way look like stitching, the way that they've done that. I know I've already said this already, but the fact that this is all molded plastic, and yet what's below it is still all fabric, I think Hot Toys has done a pretty good job of mirroring the two, so it looks like it's a continuation of the same material, even though this, knock-on plastic, and this, knock-on material, are clearly two different materials. The meshing, as you can see there on the side of his head, carries rather nicely then into the mesh on the interior of his neck. And then, of course, when we look at the costuming, part of this reminds me of Tron, which again, why I call him Tron Spidey. In a way, it kind of reminds me of the villain from Ant-Man. I'm drawing a blank actually right now who that is. Yellow Jackets kind of reminds me a little bit of that as well. Of course, when you see it up close and personal, it isn't so much, again, a honeycomb effect as it's made of just little tiny cubes. But it does really look quite nice. The design is very similar to the advanced suit that he had in the video game. Of course, just the only difference is that the color is really swapped out in favor of all this jet black. I like that it sort of has coils to it, the way that they've designed both the sleeve, the siding of his costume, and also his legs. You can see as well, it has all these nice little nods of yellow there on the side. Just again, this would have all illuminated. Of course, for the cost of producing this figure, it would have been impossible for them to be able to physically illuminate this. But I think you get the next best thing with the lights, well, the light stripes of yellow sort of mimicking what could potentially glow. And of course, on the back, you've got the big, large spider emblem there, making up the majority of his torso. It literally just stretches from one shoulder to the other. The stitch work is pretty good on this, but again, along with the problems that usually plague Spider-Mans from Hot Toys, it really does limit what you can do with this. When it comes to certainly articulation, which we'll talk more about in a second, You really will want to be very careful when it comes to moving these, especially the way that they've stitched the shoulders. That's one thing I've noticed the most. The stitching literally sits right there, and it's on both sides for obvious reasons. I would worry, of course, they really recommend not going any bit past this point, for example, but if you are somebody that likes to fully pose your figure, pulling it too far would definitely start opening, I feel, the seam on the inside of his armpit. You really want to be careful of it. This particular Spider-Man has, like other Spider-Man, a clean finish, a clean side, a show side, if you will. And then the other side, there's clearly the area where they would have had to sew this shut. Of the two, this is definitely the more uglier side, and it's definitely on the inside of his arm as well. It's unavoidable. It's just certainly one of those cases. In order for him to fit into a skin-tight suit like this, something has to be sacrificed. So there's always, again, Julia Child, I think, would refer to this as the public side. And this is the side that people really wouldn't want to be able to show off. The suit, for its limitations, as I move a little bit further down on the figure, it looks really good. The dark black on Spider-Man really does work quite well. And just the few little trace placements of that yellow, again on the lower leg of his body and again in the thigh area, really just pop just enough. It's subtle in such a way that when you're seeing it from a distance, you may not even point out all the places of yellow. And yet when you look closely, the fact that they were able to actually put the little strips of yellow all the way down his body is a really nice touch. The last thing I certainly want to talk about is his footwear. Spider-Man, we've seen this style of foot before, not necessarily this color, but certainly its design, where you've got like the back heel. Let's just reach around to the other side here. The back heel is a plastic piece. And what it does is it continues on a plastic sole that goes across. Nice detailing on the bottom end of it, by the way. And then it goes around to the front of the foot as well. Now, when you are moving the feet, you'll see that the back heel leaves from the back of the calf, which is fine, and that's good. The problem, though, is when it comes to the foot articulation, specifically in the toe articulation right here. Something I have mentioned before when we looked at Hot Toys Spider-Man, specifically with this particular design going for, is that I worry right here this is going to start splitting. Just by the nature of the way that they've attached that to the bottom plastic sole, I worry excessive bending it back and forth will start splitting the material right here, as if Spider-Man doesn't already have problems going for him. Running through now the Posability on Anti-Ock suit Spider-Man. Once again, I hate to be that person, I hate to be that guy, but I would say recommended. Go back and check the manual again when you first get this figure, just to know how limited when it comes to moving the joints. You don't want to push those limits. And by all means, I know there's collectors out there that like to get these figures in extreme poses, and Spider-Man being one of them on that list. But I personally don't like to add wear and tear, especially to a costume like this, where the seams are set up on the costume. Really the last thing you would want to have is those starting to rip away on you. So when it comes to the figure's articulation, it's the following. The head rotates all the way around. You can move it up just a little bit, not too much, and you can also move it down. I wish there was a little bit more articulation. I feel there's an articulated point right here at the base of the neck, but it's not something I really want to push a lot to, just simply, again, because I'm worrying about, I know, long-term damage to that costume. It is really sad the fact that we even have discussions like this. You pick up a figure that's $200 to $300, and you like to think that you could have this figure for a long period of time. And then sure enough, there's all these rules that have to go along with it. You can only do this with the figure. You can only do that with the figure. You have to worry about the weather conditions, whether the costume like this will split, crack over time. Again, for a $200 to $300 figure, it is kind of sad the fact that we have to have this sort of conversation. But like I said, he does have articulation at the base of the neck. I just don't feel super confident being able to move that back and forth. It's there. It's not to mean that I would really want to go in there and start pushing the neck forward and back like this. As for just the head alone, though, other than what I've just listed, the head also does rotate all the way around. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about his arms. His arms, according to the instruction guide, are limited to about a 90-degree angle bend. As you are moving the arms, you'll hear a ratcheted joints with every single movement that you do. And that's to about the full extent that you want to go with. Now, I don't know if I would want to display... First of all, I wouldn't display Spider-Man like this anyways. It looks a little strange, him just with his arms out like this. It looks like he's about to do jumping jacks. Again, I don't know if I would want to have the arms out like this permanently, just for the damage that could cause down the road. Again, I know there's a lot of collectors out there that would probably go a little more the extreme than what I'm showing you guys right now. And again, all the power to them if they're able to do that without damaging the figure. As for the arms, I'm just going to, again, bring them forward. You can bring them forward at roughly, well, you can get them up to about this point. Beyond anything after that point, you sort of feel like there's some stress developing around the shoulder area. If you have the arms also straight, the arms bend at about 120 degrees, just beyond the point of 90-degree angle bend. Longevity of that material that they're using, I don't know. It's certainly something we may have to discuss maybe a year or two from now. I also worry again, and again, I hate to sound like this guy, if you are bending the joint and leaving it for long periods of time, whether that will leave permanent creases in the material. Again, that's something that you would have to leave with me, and I would have to leave a figure like this in this pose for maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month, and then go back and see if it's left any creases behind. The time and few days that I've spent actually with this figure, I haven't developed any creases, at least in the material, or whatever creases I have developed in the sleeve, for example, seem to have settled out after that. That's only the short amount of time that I've actually spent with it. He has the upper torso crunch. You can move that forward and back. Don't be alarmed by the fact it has that cracking noise. That's normal. That should be there. It does twist ever so slightly back and forth, just not too much though. Then for the legs split out. You can bring the legs up. The instructions say 90 degrees. I'm only really able to get it about a 45 or even 50-degree angle bend. I don't know if I can really pull it off anything past that point. Maybe it's close to about a 75-degree angle bend. You can pull it a little higher than that, but I'm a little bit more reluctant if you ask me. You can then also bend the knee at 120 degrees. And then when it comes to his articulation on the feet, I know we've kind of just treaded on that slightly. Oh, I just said tread. I see what I did there. But you can move the feet forward and back. You can ankle rock them just a little bit. You will want to be careful of that. And he does also have toe articulation. Things that could develop long-term, who's to say? Could start developing a crease or a split right there. Could start developing a crease or split right there. But again, I hate to sound like that person. What I will sound, hopefully, like is a person that really enjoys this figure. I think more so for the fact I'm referencing it to Tron. And for that reason and that reason alone, I think this was a must pick up for me. I just love the design of this costume in the game. Having Spider-Man, not Batman, because I'm so used to seeing Batman in black, but having Spider-Man in jet black like this also kind of reminds me of the symbiote costume, although this is kind of more slick like leather. The yellow pops really nicely. Of course, you got the emblem on the front and the back, and again with those bright yellow eyes. This is a really nice looking Spider-Man. He's limited, yes. I mean, it goes without saying. He's going to be limited like other Hot Toys Spider-Man. But for just the cosmetic look of the costume, it is one of my personal favorites from the video game series. While the Anti-Ock suit Spider-Man costume does bear a slight resemblance to maybe something Tony Stark would bring out for House Protocol in Iron Man 3, one of his costumes looks a little like this, it's not far-fetched to think that the wall crawler would adopt black. After all, he has worn a black costume in the past, and we know how well that worked out, right? The Tron suits, the Anti-Ock suit Spider-Man, does have a really nice, slick look to it. It probably helps as well that the costume comes across more like rubber than it does a material. Of course, with being the material that they ended up using, I'm always, of course, worried. I always worry when it comes to $200 to $300 figure. Ouch. It's somewhat ironic, the fact that we always have to have these discussions. You pick up an expensive figure and you're going to think that, yeah, I'm going to have this figure on display and I can really pose them in any which way that you want. You really can't. And unfortunately, long term, I don't know if maybe the material that they're using for this costume will give you some problems. Of course, there are the more courageous collectors out there that will throw caution to the wind and just look at an instruction guide as merely more just a suggestion and say, hey, I'll take over from here, instruction guide, and just really display their figure any which way that you want. I have all the praise possible for collectors like that are willing to push the limits for their figures. I'm not personally somebody that likes to take the risks like that, especially for what these figures cost. So a lot of times, even though you're seeing here in Final Look Spider-Man swinging on a web, I'm probably not going to display the figure like this. Just going to have him in his very boring vanilla museum pose, like I do the very boring vanilla pose with all my other Spider-Man Hot Toys figures. I'm sorry, it's just a case I was worried that these materials would start to degrade over time, start leaving seam lines or start splitting. You know, of course, all the things that go along with having to babysit. It's literally like having another child when you buy these Hot Toys figures. Some are a little bit better than others. Unfortunately, Spider-Man's a little bit more plagued with limited articulation and a lot of times a material that just doesn't lend well to a character that should be super flexible. Go figure. What do you guys think of Anti-Ock suit Spider-Man? Let me know down below in the comments section. Now again, I did make such a failed error on my part to choose the wrong Spider-Man. I'm sort of like Jennifer Connelly choosing the wrong door in Labyrinth, and the door says you chose down. You chose the wrong. I chose the wrong way. I should have probably gone with the deluxe version because I don't think the deluxe version adds that much more of a footprint on his display base, but does bring in some rather nice looking Doc Ock arms. If again, I'm just going to go with the straight museum posing, it would certainly help to bring a little something more to the table. I totally should have got the deluxe version. I totally instead went with the basic version. Still a nice looking figure, but I think the Doc arms would have really enhanced the look of this figure on display. Anyways, if you guys are new to this channel, enjoying all the content you're seeing, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Turn the bell notification on. And if you're sitting back for a second and thinking, I really wish this guy would review more Hot Toys. Is this the first Hot Toys he's reviewed? Hey, is this the first Hot? No, I can hear you. I can hear you, sir. This isn't the first Hot Toys. This isn't my first rodeo, they say. I've actually reviewed a whole bunch of Hot Toys, and you'll be happy to know at the very end of this review, you'll see the playlist that will take you on over to my other Hot Toys reviews if you want to go, and feel free to check those out. Speaking of which, though, we will definitely be looking at more Hot Toys reviews, so make sure you keep your spider peepers peeled to this channel. And as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.